So I told you, man, you can't stick it up that far because it's
Then the
gonna
tits
hurt.
will explode. Yeah, it's just I'm not cleaning that shit
Oh
up.
shit, we're live.
Oh, for fuck's sake, man. Yeah. What were you saying?
Welcome everyone to the 10K Run podcast. My name is Amos Joseph, joined by my co-host Brook Potter. How's it going, Brook?
It's going well, Amos. Yeah, we just got done with a fantastic show with our dear friend and brother Abu American over on the Religion Zero podcast. So for people who are tuning in, please do check that out. As for me, I'm out here. Summer is in full effect. I'm exhausted. This 2 podcast shit a day is definitely getting to me. We got to talk to the union. I need more money and more coffee and more pussy and more everything. I don't know if I could keep pace. Beyond that, yeah, England is doing well. We've got some solidarity protests out in Trafalgar Square, out in the center of London for, of course, George Floyd. And we've also got in Hyde Park the protests against the lockdown measures in the UK that are quite draconian. So it's a very spicy day, and I did not get to go out and get arrested today, so I'm very disappointed. How are you doing?
I was gonna say, speaking of, there we go. Speaking of money, getting more money.
There we go.
Yeah, the sponsors. So we have our sponsors of both ourselves and the Tactical Soap. Tactical Soap, get it. If you want to get it because it's good stuff. And it supports the show when you get it. So tacticalsoap.com, use the coupon code 10KRUM, 10KRUM. You get 10% off and you help out the show and you get this good shit that doesn't fuck up your balls. So
doesn't shrink your nuts and
exactly. That's always good. And of course, Subscribe Star, that is a way you can directly support us. There's different perks and stuff we have in there. We've got a couple people. We've got Edmundo, our $25 tier supporter. As always, shout out to him. And then you guys can support anything from a $1 all the way up to $25. So 1, 5, 10, 25. The $5 one is obviously the most popular one, since that's where you get access to our raw takes. We did a raw takes just the other day, kind of talking like more of a raw take on the measures that are in place right now with so we're obviously going to get into the riots, the protesting, the
end
the
of
measure.
America.
Don't bum me out more. All of that's going on, of course. We wanted to kind of get a more Brooke and I straight up had like a pretty it's one of those rare moments you catch Brooke and I like not agreeing on something that we actually will.
Different perspectives. Yes.
Well, that we'll argue it for a good while, where it's not just, we even talked even more afterwards.
Yeah.
Because we're like, we don't want to like
rolling.
Yeah.
We'll save it for the show today.
Yeah. So that is a part of the $5 tier, and then of course the 25 gets you the maximum amount of perks. So thank you for who are supporting us, but if you do choose to want to check those out, go to subscribestar.com/shitlord-preachers. For the viewers, of course, you see a little chyron below. For the listeners, check those out. So thank you to that. So yeah, fucking A, dude. America's getting kicked.
Fucked up the ass.
Yeah, with
no
Mexican
oil.
I mean, for how much fire is going on, you'd think we had some Taco Bell. So everyone's kind of gathered, is pretty much knows about towards the beginning of the week, gentleman by the name of George Floyd was killed by cops. So there's 4 officers. One of them. So he went into a shop and had a $20 bill, and $20 bills are one of the most counterfeited bills in there. It is probably the most counterfeited bill in U.S. dollars. Mm-hmm. And he was using one, and they said they caught it as counterfeit. Now, counterfeit money, no matter how much, well, depending on how much it is, but a $20 bill, I don't think warrants calling the cops and them arrest. Well, calling the cops, maybe. Usually you're just kind of like, hey, it's fake. I'm not going to let you use this. Typically, that's what I've seen. Is just like, some places have policies where you have to call the cops, if I was in a situation personally, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll give you another bill. Like, I'll destroy this, like, pull out a lighter and burn it in front of them. Like, I know it's fake. It's just, yeah. So cops came, handcuffed him, and then they pinned him to the ground. And one of the one cop that's, now his name lives in infamy, is put his knee right on George Floyd's neck, and it essentially caused him to suffocate and die. And the way things are with the U.S., like, police unions are very strong, so a lot of action didn't take place soon enough. These guys were immediately fired and sent home. So that led to all 4 of their houses being vandalized and mobbed. None of them has gotten hurt or anything, but there's definitely damage to property. But as a result, peaceful protests that took place the day after, by halfway through, like, just as the protests went on, it devolved into chaos. So riot ensued, vandalism, looting. The looting happened. The looting was the big one that really took it off. And of course, the further destruction, new constructions being burnt down. The 3rd precinct for Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department got burnt down. I think a couple other precincts were threatened too. An AutoZone got burnt down, which is just, it's a parts store. Like, there's no connect. Yeah, car parts. Targets, one main one got completely vandalized and looted. I don't know if I think there's a couple more that definitely got hit too, which led to Target closing down all of their locations in all of the Twin Cities area, as well as surrounding cities. And the protests were just spreading. So as that happened, I think a handful of people were shot, some actually killed in the confrontations with police. The National Guard was mobilized. Then, of course, the protests and rioting and everything started spreading to other cities, just because major cities tend to be where the most people that would kind of, people that want to stand in solidarity, but then they kind of were following suit. Like, just, they're rioting, we're rioting. They're looting, we're looting. National Guards in multiple states being mobilized. I think someone I heard who's former military said some battalions are on standby. So that would be, just in terms of escalation and use of force, that is definitely a lot higher than the National Guard. National Guard is military nonetheless, but it's like, if the U.S. Army kind of has to step in, shit's hit the fan.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah. You painted a pretty accurate picture of what's happening, of course, and of course, this has spilled over into a number of other cities. I mentioned in the intro that London has not riots, but definitely a solidarity movement that's taking place in Trafalgar Square. Our guest in the previous podcast, Abu American, he said he shared out the links of it. Fair enough, and I'm in complete agreement with all of that. But there are some very interesting things that are taking place. That as even our friend Corey was kind of saying, you can see that it's more than one group that's active in these things, and the media is not doing a very good job of like really painting a realistic picture of what's going on. I think in some ways they're making it a lot worse.
Yeah, because there's some media is putting out there that it's all right wing KKK white supremacist groups, and from people that I've heard from on the ground that have seen it, it's only rumors.
Yeah, I think a report actually came out saying the far right has not really got involved in the riots.
There's definitely you're gonna get. People are people, so just for the sake just probabilities. Yeah, there's probably some right wing people out there. Sure. Same, but then
they're not the active participant, like the instigators of this thing thus far.
But the real confrontations that are taking place is between the local Black communities that are obvious that they were the ones that started up the peaceful protests, and a lot of them are actually wanting to keep it that way, which it kind of hasn't. George Floyd's family and his girlfriend spoke out saying they didn't want any of this to happen because of him. They just want justice to be done. The one cop is now in custody for a couple of days now, pending, trial and charges and such. The other three, still nothing about them. They're probably investigating further. Trump has dispatched from the Department of Justice and, the FBI to do a full investigation. No one is really reporting on that. Because they're saying they want local response when federal response is in a way a little bit more like it's not like, be happy and stop whining, but it's just like you really look at it like, hey, the nation has taken enough of an interest that there's real action taking place. It's not going to fix itself overnight. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. And the action that's taking place is even faster than what would normally be taking place, especially with publicity and everything else.
Even and it shows, because a lot of people have pointed out like police unions tend to delay a lot of this, like the connections they have in sort of what's the term? Just parallel like things that they're in connection with, the police, fire departments, EMTs, like the way they're all connected. Police unions tend to have this wide sphere of influence, and for all the stuff they tend to do to kind of like keep things, under wraps, just not talking about it. The whole paid administrative leave, stuff like that tends to happen in these cases. That hasn't happened. They're really cutting through a lot of that bullshit that tends to happen. So there's that. But the riots are still going on. We're now going on our third night of an official like state mandated curfew for the entire Twin Cities area. Like freeways and everything's closed down at 8:00. And
I think you were telling me yesterday that Phoenix, Arizona started kicking off with riots as well.
Yeah, Phoenix. I mean, it's
like other places they're having this is that's what we'll probably get into. I know there are other protests around the country and the world, but I in our raw takes at that point, no other place had kicked off into any kind of violence. And I think you were the one messaging me last night about Phoenix, and they said there has been some rioting in Phoenix.
Oh, the riots have broken in multiple cities right now.
Okay, yeah.
Louisville is broken out. LA is starting to break out. There was small pockets of violence happening in along the East and the West Coast.
I'm not surprised by that. If this is anyway, we'll get into it.
Riots there's protests breaking out in Austin and Dallas because there's a lot of this idea of like I think we talked about this, like it's more democratically run cities.
I think with the violence that's taking place, obviously I don't know the full list since you said they're all over. The last report I checked, they were all kind of democratic cities. So there is this perception that a lot of these people are bussed in and paid for to instigate. Not all the protesters, not all the rioters, before people start screaming, give us the monster. But there is a sentiment that there are people that might be being bussed in to try and spark the tinder by causing violent acts. So some people
definitely not sparking the app Tinder though.
No, clearly not. There's some crazy things that have kind of come out from this. I think you and I were just discussing about a pallet of bricks that was left outside the Minneapolis Justice Department, or I guess the courthouse. I think is the actual thing. So these young kids went out there, and there's literally there's no construction anywhere. There's just this pallet of bricks conveniently outside the courthouse. And the kids were kind of smart to it. They looked pretty young. And the face of this entire thing has, I think, overall been very young. And the kids were like, we're being set up. Like this, they put this here. They want us to storm this building and stuff like that. We're not going to fall for it, that kind of thing that's going on.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard this kind of thing, that the wife of Derek, was it Chauvin? Chauvin is his name? I think that's his name. So Derek Chauvin is the gentleman who put his knee on the guy's on Floyd's neck. Yep. His wife is Kelly Chauvin, and she is the
divorcing
sister,
him.
and she's divorcing him. Yeah, I was going to get to that. But she is the sister to the Asian guy who was also present, Tao Ching. Or was it Tu Thao? I think, well, however the Korean name is, who was standing there at the time. They all kind of, that the Asian guy that was there with him was his brother-in-law. And it's very, very bizarre, this whole thing. And yes, as the climax of that is that she is now divorcing him, carte blanche. And something that I kind of raised in the Raw Takes was I wondered if there was some kind of impropriety with his wife and George. I mean, it's a fun thing to speculate.
Oh, no. Because, and then there was George Floyd, who used to work with that cop back at some other job. So there's all these connections going on between those four people.
Yes,
that are slowly unraveling. Someone got a little too conspiratorial for me and pointed out like the picture that the media released of Derek looked different than the footage of him.
Right. Okay.
But then they were like, it could have been just different time periods, or just, the media, screws up pictures quite often.
Yeah.
So people are getting a little too conspiracy theory happy. They're getting, they're getting their rocks off on feeling like, ooh, there's something going on, something's cooking. Some people are even suggesting George Soros's involvement and all this stuff, and I'm just like, oh,
well, of course George Soros is involved. He's funding it all,
No, I try not to. We try not to entertain too much.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past it. Obviously, we wouldn't know. I wouldn't put it past either that there are political forces, leaving a pallet of bricks on the street does take a certain amount of organization to kind of push this thing forward. So there's definitely more going on than just peaceful protest. And even I was sharing in the Raw Takes as well. If anybody wants to see that, I think our $5 tier on Subscribestar, you can see our latest episode on that. A lot of the people in the community are pleading, like, do not destroy this place. But if you look at a lot of the graffiti, for instance, it's all about, fuck Trump and, let's end capitalism and on, like, all of these political slogans that have nothing to do with the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah, the places where you see like shrines or like sort of dedications to him, you don't. Obviously, no one is trying to wreck those places, but I'm seeing like some murals and stuff, some like graffiti like devoted to him.
Yeah,
it's just flowers, a lot of stuff, and people are there, and that's normal. But it's like there's no violence or anything breaking out there, and there's no like, people obviously like there's a respect for that, but anywhere else, it's just it's.
Burning down the buildings, the graffiti, and of course you see all the. I think LA had they did some burning of cars in LA, and all the police cars have spray painted, fuck the pigs and fuck the cops and whatever. This is well beyond just justice for Floyd, right? This for George. I think we would, where we disagreed was on what we think is the cause of all of this.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of I feel there's a lot more outside influence that's really pushing this thing along. And the media, of course, is playing right into that. It must have been quite the shock when these rioters showed up at the CNN office in Atlanta and started storming, the front doors and breaking the glass.
Like, wait, we supported you. We said you were like CNN was pushing the narrative like they're all these noble protesters. None of them has a sin in their life, kind of thing.
Yeah, literally in front of a burning building. The guy's like, yeah, it's mostly peaceful. You're in front of a fucking burning building. Like, one other reporter was there and they were like throwing shit at him and cops and stuff like that. And he's like, it's a peaceful protest.
It definitely brought out some like interesting things. I kind of said like, and this is not in any way defense of police. This is just more, I want to examine circumstance.
Yes.
Because any conversation that involved commenting on it, people are like, oh, you're defending police. No, and I don't defend police because like I can see where like they're really fucking up. Like, so they're getting caught on camera doing a bunch of stupid shit during these protests. I will totally agree with that. But in terms of circumstance and reality, you have cops that are out there that are like, they're working extra long shifts because they have to confront this thing. Like, say all you want about, freedom and the ability to protest without interference and such. And I'm looking at all this and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I definitely agree with all the protesting in the peaceful manner, not the rioting, not the looting, not the vandalism, the destruction of private property and such. But because of the problem of chaos that they're trying to solve, they're trying to bring order to all this chaos that's going on. Cops have to work extra hard. They have to work, their regular 8-hour shift turns into a 12, 16, maybe even a 24-hour shift of like just cleaning up, getting things in order, getting people rounded up to like send them home, find them, take them off to jail, all this stuff. And then you catch the 3-second clip of a cop being approached by a bunch of protesters who just want to scream at them, just spit and everything in their face. And then the cop, just that one cop or handful of cops that gets in frustration, shoves a protester. They fall backwards. And all of a sudden it's all cops are this way. And it's like,
Yeah.
First off, cops definitely shouldn't do that. Second of all, that cop's probably in such a long ass shift of dealing with all the bullshit that's going on that it's just an emotional outburst that even a lot of the best of them probably can't handle. It's not to defend them, but it's just to address the reality that you're catching all the stuff that's going on when there's a whole, buildings are burning. So obviously damage is taking place. People are being affected. So cops, firefighters, and all this stuff, these people have to get out there. While they're showing all this video footage of cops like having to unfortunately barrel through groups of people who are trying to block them, you don't know where they're going.
Correct.
Maybe they have to go save someone who's getting the shit beat out of them. Maybe there's some sort of like bigger problem somewhere else in town. They're driving around all fucking day trying to get everything, like as much work as they can do to like bring order to the situation. And just all these protesters are just interfering with that. Yeah. Like, I think you can definitely protest and not have to interfere with, like protest. Like, so, you want to go protest at a precinct, fine. But if a cop has to respond to a call, let him do his job.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're protesting in an area that has a lot of businesses and people are driving to and from work, let them get to work. Because they're going to definitely see what you're doing. They're going to understand what the cause that you're obviously there for. But when you start vandalizing, when you start hurting and disrupting everyday people's lives, it actually makes you look a whole lot worse. Your cause is like, to my understanding, the riots and the civil rights movement, they weren't trying to like stop. Like they did large events that the news would cover, and the speakers and the leaders and all these people would all speak on something to point out the injustice. They would do things that were directly affecting only their lives. So it's like, I don't want to, I'm going to boycott this business because I personally go there. I'm going to tell people not to go there. Like, that's one thing. But then I'm not going to like go out in the street and disrupt traffic in front of that place and completely ruin everything for everyone else who's not even having anything to do there. There's just a lot of this stuff that I think is just so uncoordinated and unwise that it just kind of does more to harm what they're trying to accomplish than help it.
I would agree with you if it is they were actually trying to protest. And that's the point I keep making.
I think the beginning of it was a protest.
Yeah, absolutely. There are protesters there. Completely agree. But what we're seeing beyond that is not about the protest. It's, yes, there's opportunism with the looting, but a lot of the paraphernalia and a lot of the graffiti and stuff like that is actually trying to destroy business. It's trying to destroy justice. This is why a lot of people suspect this is the far left and the kind of anti-far rhetoric. They are trying to bring down the system and, rebuild it in whatever image there are. So while I agree, if the protesters were doing that and they think that's helping their cause, you're completely right. That's not helping their cause. But the response we're getting from all of this actually says, no, this is something different. This is what these people are doing it to antagonize. They think this is their revolution. The far left is jumping in on this. And I think I mean, obviously we can't prove it unless we actually start like arresting and interviewing and figuring out why people are doing what they're doing. But just given from the actions, I would have to say, well, yeah, this is well beyond just, angry rioting or trying to get justice for George Floyd. This has a lot to do with, I think the upset leftists and the socialists and the communists think this is their last chance to usurp Trump, and the Democratic Party knows they're going to lose, and they're probably throwing some money to get some agitators out there. I think that's also possible.
I'm seeing some comments here in the chat. We've got Specular Effect and Brian that are both.
What's going on, Spec?
They're not really liking what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the comment about how they think we're taking, and this was the other point I want
to address them. Sure. I'm not making excuses for what's happening. I'm just telling you why it is the way it is. Because when I'm talking about the reality of the situation, it is what it is. I'm not saying it's one way, like it has to be one or it has to be the other.
Correct.
Like cops shouldn't hurt people actively in certain situations unless it is necessary. So like I will say cops need to do their jobs, but they also shouldn't be actively harming people who are just like standing in the middle of the street. It's like I can understand like a cop needs to get through a crowd, but he also shouldn't be barreling through a crowd. Like, you can take both positions equally.
You saw that video of the cops in Los Angeles. I think they were on some freeway. Again, I mean, it's fucking Los Angeles. And again, a bunch of kids jump up, smash the back window, jump up on the car, and the cop kind of, he's driving off and he's kind of flicking them off the car. And one of them falls off either the bonnet or the roof or whatever, falls on the ground, and the cop car takes off. And another police car pulls up alongside the guy who fell to the ground, and he was checking on him. He's like, "Are you okay?" This, that, and all of them stormed that cop car and destroyed it, and just complete fucking animal.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you can take both positions, and I think even with like libertarians that are speaking out, like you can take the position that what was done to George Floyd was complete injustice, and also say what the rioters and looters and and these protesters are doing right now is also wrong.
Yeah.
And people aren't really and people are saying either like if I take the position and say people have the right to protest, therefore I'm defending the looters. And it's like, no, I'm not defending what they're doing in this case. Like, but then if I say like, hey, looting is wrong, they say, no, you're defending the cops. And it's like, I'm not doing that either.
Yeah, it's a common hypocrisy of the left. And I'm seeing it now on the right as well with this same issue, where they have nuance when it comes to an issue that they agree with, and they have groupthink when it comes to an issue they disagree with. So a very common thing of that is, not all immigrants coming in or not all Muslims are terrorists or whatever the nuance is, right? Not all refugees are bringing in drugs, or not all Mexicans are criminals. So when the left sees, it comes to humanitarian thing, they're nuanced. It's like, oh, well, it's just a few and whatever. But then you flip the other side when it comes to guns, and it's not all gun owners that are, going and shooting up schools. No. Just ban all guns. It's all of them. And this is the common, and now we're seeing it on the right as well with this whole situation. And, you have to be more nuanced in your analysis. You have to be able to say, okay, yeah, look, in the talk that we did, power is always going to attract the worst types of people in government, in police, in the military. These are people who, and probably they should stick in the military because that's where they can kill legally and, shoot up some other people. But you're going to get some crazies. Just the nature of those jobs is going to attract not Mother Teresa's. You're going to get a couple crazies. Fine. We have to accept that as a reality. And as a society as a whole, we've kind of already agreed to that. But when they do step out of line, absolutely, it is you deal with that person in the justice system, hopefully, and you deal with that individual. And what we are seeing, and which is why I think there's a heavy leftist influence coming from the media and otherwise, they're demonizing all the cops. I'm sure the people in the community understand the nuance, and they understand, look, this is our community. We had some bad cops, but we need the cops, especially if it's a bad area and there's a lot of crime. They know they need the cops to help, all this kind.
It
But
is a
these
net
people,
good.
correct. Overall, it's on balance, as they say, or whatever the case is. Fully agree that there are bad cops. Undoubtedly, there are bad cops, corrupt, all of the above. But we can't just blanket that on every cop out there, without evidence. And I think that's the subtle difference.
Yeah, you're seeing these videos that are heavily edited to show sort of like unfortunate happenstances. Like in a got a little fly there. In a situation of I mean, it's just it's a probability thing. When you're in a situation where there's literally tens of thousands of people all over an entire city doing all sorts of just wrecking all sorts of havoc, and police have to get everywhere. Like they need to respond to everything, anything from a fire to someone that's injured to more property being destroyed, anywhere. The chance of conflict, of confrontation, both in the in the sense of like just social, like actual confrontations, to little physical contact of confrontation, like
Yeah.
cops having to rough handle some people. It's not to defend it. It's just it's what happens. There's going to be a clash, and people are trying to, and you edit it in a way to say, oh, they're all just trying to beat us up. They're beating us all up. It's like, no, they're not beating you all up. But in a case where you're all out there, someone is going to get hurt, because one cop and one person meeting each other is that much higher. So, you could have 10,000 police incidents, 10,000 arrests, we'll say, and let's say about 1,000 of them, so 1 in 10, have a little bit of a physical conflict. Whether it's you got to rough handle the guy to arrest him, you do this. So now you apply that. Now 10% of all your footage has a cop having to rough handle someone. Now, should the cop be doing that? There's definitely cases where cops are definitely abusing that privilege of being able to just like manhandle someone to like get them to do something, to either remove them or whatever. You're capturing that over the course of a few days, where that's happening everywhere now, because it's just the math of it plays out that way. So while in reality, most cops are just trying to like keep the peace, keep the order. You get the small handful that are mixed into that. You catch all that. You basically post a video that shows everything that's going on with these protests. The cops are entirely the bad guys, and the protesters are the saints. But then you find some videos that people don't really put out there in the mainstream media, where it's individuals that are partying on top of a burning building. They're just walking right up to buildings and throwing rocks. There's you see the pictures, you see the video footage of businesses that have absolutely nothing to do with the protests getting wrecked.
Yeah.
AutoZone, Verizon stores, freaking Wendy's. Like, I don't know if you've seen the meme. Have you heard the meme? Like, ma'am, this is a Wendy's. Like, you'll see like someone will write this whole thing. So what it is like, anytime there's a case where someone is like arguing this very long and just nuanced point.
Yeah, I know that.
And then they'll be like, "Sir, this is a Wendy's." Like, it's just,
can I take your order, please? Like,
it's like, I don't need to hear about your whatever. So then someone posted a picture of a Wendy's on fire. They said, "Sir, this is a Wendy's." Like, I thought that was pretty good.
That's funny.
So, and there's a couple of things too that I've seen that was really interesting. Is I've seen some right-wing people making this point, and I don't know how valid it would be. So they're talking about like the Virginia protests.
Okay.
When they were like protesting their gun laws being radically changed, and you saw like just whole groups of your like more right-leaning individuals fully armed approaching their government. Yeah. And all the left wing was like, this is not right. This is intimidation, because some people then got death threats. Like, death threats just happen to people in public positions. It just, anywhere you go, from either side.
Bro,
But so
I
they're
get
freaking.
death threats and I'm nobody. I get death threats on my channel all the time.
Yeah, but you're getting all this, and this is all just going in. Everyone's just, the right is just horrible, and this is not how you do it. This is not how you get your way. You go there with guns, and then they turn around and defend looters and rioters that are destroying buildings, threatening those same types of lives in state power. Those state positions. It's like, where's the balance? Anyway, so they're saying so they try to turn it into like a privilege thing. Like, look at all these white people that can be armed at the state house and nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
And then they say, but look at all these black people and they don't even have guns and they're getting shot at or confrontation. And some right-wing people were saying, okay, arm yourselves then.
Yeah.
Do your protests with perfectly visible arms. See how that goes. Because they said in the interest of how police when they're making their decisions, it's either subdue whatever, to bring order through overwhelming action, so basically, or just kind of maintain your position.
Yeah.
So when the protesters, the group that you're trying to basically kind of keep in check, when they're the ones that are as armed or more armed than you are, you can't escalate further. You can't overwhelm them. The conflict becomes inevitable. So they were saying, okay, so if you're armed, it would actually put them in a position where they're not going to fuck with you. And actually, both sides, because it's kind of like a small scale application of mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
We won't shoot you if you won't shoot us. We're just going to sit here and protest. Because the moment the protesters shoot, the cops shoot. The moment the cops shoot, the protesters shoot.
Yeah, exactly. It's mutually assured destruction. Exactly.
Yeah. So it actually can, in the long run, probably save more lives, because then it's like it forces the police, like, okay, they're armed, we're armed. Okay, someone call the police chief. Someone call the people that they actually want to see. Let's get this thing going. Let's actually, we got to get these cops arrested. They're more willing to we got to get shit done.
Yeah,
we got to meet their demands. As long as their demands are, of course, not with just some, we want to destroy capitalism. No, you want us to bring justice to George Floyd and, his family. And of course, with the cops, that actually probably would have just been like that. But then because you have this, you have people that are in this one instance are anti-cop without realizing they're really just anti-government. And then they're so anti-gun that they're not willing to sort of stand up for themselves in a way that actually gets gun. Leftists want to go and say guns won't really do anything against the overwhelming power of government. This is proof of that.
Yeah.
Because it actually devolves further. Whereas if they just started off with a fully armed group of protesters, the cops would have just been it would have just been a standoff turning into trying to get something done. They're more willing to get something done. It is.
Yeah, I would suspect so.
It is essentially a tactic to kind of get what you want. Whereas when you're the one that's unarmed, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah. I mean, it does come down. If, the right to defend yourself, especially in the US, is definitely a fundamental right. And so I don't have an issue with people being armed, going out to these protests. In fact, there was another video I saw where obviously the protesters had basically destroyed a police car, and a AR-15 was picked up by one of the protesters, and then another man showed up with a gun, and he was collecting the weapons from them. So he might have been a cop or something like that and stuff like that. And that, I think, is also the risk. If you look at a lot of the footage, it's a lot of young kids. It's a lot of, you're not seeing a lot of adults out there throwing stones and doing this kind of thing. And I think that, in a sense, might be risky. What you had at the other state protest was a lot of adults, all the, Virginia people that showed up. You didn't see a lot of kids. You see, again, it's the adults that come out, they have their weapons and whatever, and they have that culture out there, and nothing kicked off. Thank God for that. But you're seeing a completely different thing at this ride. Like some obviously deranged leftists brought their kid, like a child, to the fucking protest. And I
Seattle.
just thought what's that?
Seattle.
Yeah,
That's where it was.
Well, wherever it was, and I think the kid got maced, or I didn't watch the whole. I mean,
yeah,
this is deranged. This is not average. Nobody's thinking about this kind of thing. I mean, I just got a message here from somebody saying that the protesters have stormed into the White House for the first time in history. I can't validate that story. I don't know if that's true or not, but what has that got to do? That has nothing to do with justice. It looks like the hard left is making a power move. That's what this looks like to me. You know, that would explain a lot of it. Doesn't explain everything, but it explains a lot of what's actually, you know, being perpetrated and stuff like that. So, yeah, interesting times.
It's insane. Yeah, I'm just looking at just your in your confrontations, you want to make sure both sides are on equal footing.
If it is you're looking for a confrontation, if it is you're just looking for a protest.
You remember the whole thing with being armed as protesters, like that brings it to a sort of an equal level of tension from both sides, that people are more willing to be cooperative. Whereas if there's a huge disadvantage, because here's what happens. So then the protesters are not armed. The cops are armed, but the cops obviously can't just shoot unarmed protesters, because that's not only that's just a breach of power.
Yeah.
Right. And it's also, you know, I mean, not that this is the priority, but it's bad optics too. Exactly. So you've got that. So then the protesters can actually, but because there's non-lethal measures that are in place to try to do it, then it's like the people are like this beehive. Then it's just like you shoot something in there, it escalates and agitates the group, then actually emboldens them to get even more violent without being armed.
I get that.
That situation you said where there was the gun, the kid was trying to pick up the AR-15, and he's trying to do that, and the cop comes in to, like, you know, take the gun away. That's where it's even trickier, because now it's all are armed or none are armed, and if there's a random gun that gets into the mix, that actually makes it worse.
Quite, and because it's a lot
because the crossfire. Because even if there was someone that was a young person that's competent with a gun, and they pick up an AR from a cop, within an area that is full of unarmed people, and then there's a couple of armed cops, they're going to try to get him, but then it could risk a further confrontation, because if they try to, like, subdue him, he's going to shoot at them, which might shoot other innocent bystanders. It just could, but it's just a
it's a knock-on effect at the end of the day. But I mean, it could work in the other. It could work in the other direction as well. Okay, so the person who just told me about the White House, they said no, it's fake news. So I issue my retraction. I was just, you know, as I say, I couldn't verify it, but they say that's actually not what's happened. And Corey actually just put a great thing in the chat as well about the narrative that's being framed around this. In the midst of Minneapolis, there are armed individuals, like citizens, that are going out to protect businesses that are out there. And he just put this up again. It's the narrative from, I guess, what was it, the New York Times? I can't remember what he put there, where it's saying, oh yeah, these rednecks with their guns, and they show the picture of, like, the two white guys. But then when you see the whole picture, it's actually two white guys and two black guys, all of them armed, and they're protecting a business, you know. And I actually saw the video of the guy that they were talking to, and they're like, we were just patrolling, making sure, you know, if anybody needed help. We got word that, you know, I think it was like a casino or a convenience store. People had come in, so they came to kind of secure the area and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not a story you're going to see perpetrated. The narrative is being pushed by the media.
Yeah, I've got some people that are kind of tongue in cheek talking about the roof Koreans.
Yeah, I remember that.
Roof Koreans of the LA. So during the LA riots that everyone knows about, like, there were the Korean communities that realized that the police weren't going to be helping them with defending against, like, the police were so busy they couldn't defend the Korean community. So the Korean community just picked up guns and learned to defend their own businesses, and it was known as, one of the terms is the roof Koreans. There were these Koreans on roofs that were just defending their businesses, and it eventually set it up like no one was gonna go and mess with them. You hear the joke. Internet's funny about how they like play around with this. When you're in Vietnam and the trees start talking. So then they said, so I think there was one that was like, when the trees start talking, or they said when the trees start speaking Vietnamese, or when the roof starts speaking Korean. Like it's
it's the Viet Cong, they're in the trees.
Yeah. So it's kind of like this, when you could almost say when the streets start speaking Minnesotan, because you have like no one reports on what's going on with all this.
No. And this is it. There are acts of tremendous kindness. Like another video that I saw, it was a black guy, like a small group of black guys that lived in the area, cleaning up the streets, like sweeping, just cleaning up the mess. Just, nobody's paying them to do it. That's just what they're doing. But again, the media is so pushing this divisive narrative. I'm not surprised that, they got stoned by CNN and the reporter, got pelted with all this other kind of stuff. It's a very dishonest and dangerous, I think, push by the media for whatever purpose, they're putting it forward. And I think knowing how politics is playing out, especially in the upcoming election, where I think the Democrats know they're going to lose, I obviously can't prove it, but I wouldn't be surprised they're pulling out a lot of stops to try and, make some dished expression of last stand against Trump or some other nonsense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Real quick before we go further, we're gonna do our little thank you to our sponsors.
Thank you, sponsors.
Of course, thank you, sponsors. And that's it. No, thank you to Tactical Soap, 10K Rum for the 10% off code, and of course, Subscribestar if you want to pledge to us monthly. Subscribestar.com/shitlord-preachers, or of course, tacticalsoap.com. Coupon code 10KRUM 10K Rum for that for 10% off. So thank you to our sponsors. And we're off. Okay. Quickest little plug ever.
Oh shit, there's a spider on my wall. What the hell did he come from? Brian knows the cue very well, Brian. Thanks a lot.
We do it a little bit. But it's just I was talking to some people last night, and I was talking through all this, and it's thinking about what's going through everyone's mind. So you have the Americans, so you have, sorry, not the Americans, you have the protesters that have different things going through their minds. Some of them, probably not so much now, but in the beginning they were wanting to they're wanting to seek justice for George Floyd. Okay, there's that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all the protests and riots that are breaking out, and some people are actually probably more. There's definitely a division on like the cause of it that we talked about. Yeah. I've actually talked to some people that tend to agree with my view, not to validate me. Like,
I'm not disputing your view either. I said that's definitely possible. I think it'd be
the whole frustration side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely think that's possible.
Right.
Yeah. My thing is, if it was more adults, I think that would be more plausible. I've seen a lot of young people.
Right. Yeah. So there's that side of it where people, kind of using this as an opportunity to get out there and, loot and vandalize and just honestly just get outside, feeling like the sense of community and camaraderie that people are feeling, even if it is used in the context of, wrecking your community, like it's still there. So there's that. And people aren't really realizing like this is only gonna, like, we're already coming out of quarantine expecting a pretty tough recovery economically.
Mm-hmm.
Now with all this going on, the recovery is going to be that much harder, because not only did it kind of disrupt the measures that were meant to kind of limit sort of the social contact and the large crowds that could lead to COVID infections and such.
Yeah.
But it also, the looting and vandalizing and destruction is going to delay recovery even further, because now businesses have to rebuild, not just rebuild lost revenue, but rebuild from just lost property. Like their means of profit is now gone.
Yeah, the means of productivity, and that's my point. Is that's why I think this is a lash of the far left to destroy that entire system. That fits that.
When they were the ones that were trying to preserve society because of a disease.
No. It's, well, I mean, not really, but I would say they're trying to destroy capitalism. They're trying to destroy, the buildings and all of the institutions. And we're seeing that tends to be the theme, almost like you were talking about the meme where somebody was saying, you have to give them the right to burn down the country that was built on the backs of their slavery, or something along those lines.
Yeah, someone basically said, what is it?
That's what you're seeing.
They could destroy they're destroying. There's just destroying property that was built for free, or something like that, and it's like
they're allowed to burn down what was.
But then the meme of that had a burning building in it, which was actually a new construction project that actually hires people and pays people fair wages.
Exactly.
What?
But it shows, again, because the far left doesn't understand nuance. They're not going to get that. They're not going to understand that premise. But that's why they would destroy the institutions. That's why they'd burn down the businesses. It's because, you have a business, I don't have a business. That's unfair. You're going to burn.
And here's what they're going to do. So all this is going to be happening. So they're destroying it. They're trying to take down, they're outright saying they're trying to take down capitalism, right? But then,
some of them, some of them,
that's
definitely possible.
They're going to turn around and be posting and tweeting and whatever and saying, so this is what late stage capitalism looks like.
Yeah.
Blame it on capitalism that the destruction of capitalism is happening. It's like, no. Like you were talking about like one of the longest bull markets in a while, 12 years of a bull market, and then this disease hits, and then they blame capitalism. Then all this protests hit, then they're blaming capitalism.
Yeah.
So they're trying to dismantle capitalism while blaming capitalism that the dismantling is happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, capitalism will always be the evil boogeyman for the left. Well, like with the far left. Let me be a little more fair with that. So the far left, that's what you're seeing. The graffiti and stuff like that about fuck capitalism, burn the thing, fuck Trump, da. All of that has nothing to do with justice or dealing with racial inequality.
Well, they think capitalism is racist when
oppressive. Yeah.
And it has, we talked about this too, your master. Which master do you serve? So no matter what system you're under, at the end of the day, there is some sense of serving a master. Correct. So because I think we touched on, even not to go off too much into this trail, but we talked about healthcare. So people want to they want universal single payer, whatever it is, just all those types of universal healthcare, because people get healthcare, but then the government gets to decide who gets treatment and who doesn't. You have elective surgeries that are canceled in the UK, and people have to end up dealing with an extra 6 months of excruciating pain due to joint problems because they can't get a joint replacement surgery because the funding's not there.
And then cancer treatment, which is more common out here.
And then instead of blaming the system, they blame the politicians that mess with the funding.
Right.
Which isn't entirely fair either. And then they think, well, at least I'm getting, I'd rather get treatment. The people that'll argue this is I want to get treatment. And they don't understand, in the US, very rarely do people get no treatment. In life-threatening situations, you're going to get treatment.
Yes.
If you really need treatment, you're going to get it. So then we've talked about there's the emergency room loophole where people just go in there and they get treatment and they get a bill, or sometimes they don't, depending upon how it works. But we basically said would you rather be getting care, getting care dictated to you and being able to get care, or get care and risk being bankrupt for the rest of your life.
Right. No,
Or
I
even,
think
but
the
even, but
analogy
even,
you used was that would you rather get care and go bankrupt or be denied care, but it's free kind of thing?
yeah, being denied care when you hit a situation where they'll just say you're gonna die.
Yeah, where the bureaucrats decide you're not worth spending the money on.
Because that actually has happened.
Correct.
So it's like, you get to either the government chooses or you live or die, but if they choose you live, you live.
Correct.
But then in the case where no one really gets to choose who lives or dies, but if you choose to live, you go broke. It's like either way there's a sense of slavery, or not slavery, that gets
there's
really,
not necessarily there's a risk, and there's not always a good outcome.
there's always an obligation somewhere.
Correct.
There's a connection. You're going to be indebted to someone. You're indebted to the government because you have to stay really, really healthy if you want to maintain getting care. Because if you're not healthy enough, they think you're not worth the risk anymore.
Correct.
Here, if most people are pretty much worth the risk of providing care, but there's always the risk of money. You're going to go in debt because of this. This debt's just going to sit there forever. So it's like, what do you really want? Some people would say, I'd rather have care. Some people would say, I'd rather be alive.
Right. And it's not as obviously it's not as draconian as that, but
right.
I agree with the premise. And what is said to that is, even though out here in the UK, yes, healthcare is free and all that kind of stuff. Yes, you can be denied care, but it also gives the government, because the government is paying for it, they then get to dictate a lot of other aspects to your health. So because it's on the government dime, all this healthcare, and they want to do preventative medicine, they can start taxing things that they think are going to affect your health. So for instance, out here in the UK, we have a sugar tax on soft drinks and like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and stuff like that. And it's pretty high. I think it's like 20 or 30% or whatever the case is. And again, that affects the poor the most, because sometimes buying a 2 liter of Coca-Cola, as bad as it is actually cheaper than, buying all the juices and all this other kinds of stuff. They run the risk of doing that with meat out here as well. We've heard a lot of talk about, if the government decides that a vegan diet and all the propaganda, the vegan agenda is pushing in that direction, that vegan is the way to go, the government can impose that with the moral thinking that, we're helping save the NHS. We're trying to help save, the healthcare bill and stuff like that. So we're just going to force everybody to be vegan, and we'll create the great healthy society with no real basis other than, all the lobbying from the vegan side. And that's the risk that we have out here, because the government is solely responsible for the healthcare. So yeah, I would rather have choice. And there's no reason you can't have both, right? There's no reason you can't have a thriving private industry, hospitals, insurance, with charities and other things to try and pick up some slack, as well as a default for the very poor who can't afford, private insurance, right? Which is basically what the system in the US is. If you're very poor, I think is what, Medicaid or Medicare, one of the two. One is for the old people, one is for very poor.
Medicaid, I think it is.
Yeah, one of them. So if you're very, very poor, you're covered by Medicaid or Medicare, sorry. If you're more well-to-do, you can volunteer into insurance. Anybody who comes into an emergency room is automatically covered. Yes, you might get straddled with a bill, but you're not going to, you're not going to be kicked out on the street or denied care. And yeah, there's also private insurance, and you can pay out of pocket, as well as there's all the charities, right? So St. Jude's Children's Hospital, the Shriners, all these different places for young kids and seniors and whatever. So you can have both. You can have both systems operating and maybe do the most good. I believe in competition. If you have one system competing with the other, you might get a little efficiency, who would have thought? We don't have to have this draconian thinking of one or the other, but yeah, it's an interesting.
We have to, because that's how humans communicate effectively. Being
if you don't
binary.
Have division, if you don't have division, you can't claim power. So if you don't have a them, and this is a political ploy, if you don't have a them, then you don't need an us, which is a political power to protect you from them.
Oh man, you remember? You remember when we were the them and among Christians?
Oh yeah, I was a them.
That's funny.
I was trying to tell them that we're an us, but they didn't want an us. They wanted a them.
That's a funny way to say it. There's a thus, us, and a them.
Yeah, exactly. So there's always got to be a barbarian at the door for politicians to actually have power. There's got to be a
Barbarians.
boogeyman. Well, I mean, I use that anecdotally, but it's hyperbolically. But yeah, you got to have another. You got to have another.
What was it? Just sorry, you said barbarians, and it reminds me of a movie where they were like barbarians. Oh, Life of Brian.
Oh, we were just talking about that. Barbarians. Dickers. Yeah, that was a good show, man. That was one of my
Throw
favorite
them at
shows
the
growing
floor
up.
again. But barbarians. Yeah, it's no, but realizing sort of the long-term effects that this is going to have, I found myself in a weird place of actually getting a little bit down because of it. Like,
Are you depressed, Amos? Do you need to talk to somebody?
yeah, no, I mean, not like a depression, like an existential dread, just more of like there is a sense of like, there's a
Being
sense of pride.
tired.
Yeah, just kind of like, oh, fucking A, like, there's more shit to like the world has to go through. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not like, I think, like, you get your more traditionalist kind of tradcon types that are more like enraged by like, the decay of social social cohesion and the values and such. But for me, I'm just kind of looking at this like kind of like just like a just like goddamn, like more shit we got to get through. Like, I mean, in terms of directly affecting me, I don't know how much it'll have an effect on me, but it's just everything else around it. So like, excuse me, there's businesses that are going to have to be rebuilt. So whole entire areas of cities that just won't be accessible for a time. There's just the economic impact. So what is that going to do? That's going to change jobs. So what is that going to be? Good for jobs? Bad for jobs? Are there going to be more jobs now because of all the rebuilding that has to be done? Is there going to be fewer jobs because of all the businesses that are not available now? Like, are they gonna? Obviously, these people are not just going to recover overnight and start rehiring people again. Because not only was there already going to be a huge problem with jobs coming back. What was it? 40% of all the jobs that were lost during this crisis are not coming back.
Probably not. Yeah.
At least the jobs that were like, people aren't getting back the same job. So they have to go find other jobs. They have to create new ones. Yeah. And then for anyone that was coming back, like an average of 20% of lifetime loss of earnings. So they're going to be coming back with less earnings over time. And it's like, so there's already that. And this just made it that much worse. Because the protests are kind of coming to a certain point now in the Twin Cities area. Like, we're going into another night of curfew. What is that really going to do? Is there going to be more protesting? Is there going to be more rioting and looting? Is this going to start spreading to the other areas? Like, the flashpoint is here. Now, what are the effects going to be in all these other cities where it just kind of started? It's going to be just as bad. Because now all those cities...
I mean, we don't know that. We don't know.
We don't know.
Just as bad. Yeah. Let's not jump the gun and make ourselves even more depressed. But yeah, it's grim.
But then it's like this recovery is going to be even.
Completely agree. I mean,
be worse than a depression.
I mean, it was probably going to head that way anyway. But I agree with everything you've said. Let's hope it doesn't escalate to other cities. As much love as I have for Minnesota, it's not exactly the financial heartbeat of the United States.
I know.
Yeah. You've lost the Target, you've lost a Wendy's.
It's becoming part of the. I think it's definitely having an effect on the social heartbeat.
That I would agree with, as well as just the community in general. If your store is next to a burned out building and they've cornered it off, obviously you're not going to be able to do business. And so I get that there's a knock-on effect and stuff like that. That's not the biggest problems in the US economy at this moment. While I fully agree it's definitely going to delay the recovery in Minnesota, the truth is, in your case, it doesn't really affect you.
I know it doesn't affect me. No, it wouldn't.
not really. No. I mean, yeah, it's depressing. Nobody wants to see their city burn. You know, like, come on, man. That is depressing. So I get that.
Yeah.
Don't take it too far though. Let's just deal with the here and now. Because if you do the what if thing and let's say Los Angeles goes up in flames,
I just need my ANCAP flag on my car and just drive out there. You know, true anarchy's been achieved.
No, those are ANCOM people. They'll stone you to death. You're not one of us.
Yeah, one of the things I'm concerned about is I don't want to like take my car into the city because I might have
I would agree with that.
Like if I took like an Uber into the city, that'd be one thing.
Yeah. I wouldn't. If I were in your position, I'd probably be doing exactly what you're doing. You know, just stay out of the cities until you know that it's like an all clear sort of thing.
Yeah, because I don't like where I work. I don't really work in the city. I'm like at the edge of the city, so I'm like just not really trying to risk that too much. At least not during the day.
Yeah,
sorry, not at night.
To go into the city though, like if there's something that requires you to go into the city, you could say no.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah.
Yes, that is correct. That I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been monitoring that too. I mean, the first day of riots, I got kind of close to some areas, and I was really watching, just kind of looking around, making sure everything's good. I think I saw a couple of people protesting on the side of the street, but nothing crazy yet.
Nothing too crazy. Okay.
I know, like I think, like so, looking in the direction of the city, after the first day of the riots, I could definitely see a bit of a haze in the sky
from the plumes of smoke and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. As I got closer in some spots, I thought I saw little bits of ash in the air.
Okay. Yeah.
But maybe I was just thinking too much about it. It's all too much.
Let's lighten the mood, Amos. Let's lighten the mood. We got about 24 minutes left. I mean, yes, there was good news that came out yesterday. I don't know if you are familiar with this, although you should be because you are a fan of the man. Elon Musk managed to launch the Falcon 9 rocket with 2 astronauts to the International Space Station. Did you see this?
I mean, I didn't watch it, but I know about it. I saw a lot of memes that were like, yesterday astronauts decided to leave the planet. Good choice.
Yes.
I got to see some of the footage of like what it looks like in there. It's a pretty it's a really state of the art like rocket and everything. Like whatever they have like whatever the ship that they're using is. It's not a shuttle. I know that.
No, it's a rocket. It's a rocket. It was originally designed for cargo, and they've retrofitted it to support astronauts.
But but I mean, like, there's no special craft attached to the rocket for
it's a rocket, So it's not like a space shuttle. It's a rocket. So
the shuttle has a rocket,
right? So that's what I was getting. There's nothing attached to the rocket. This is like the Apollo mission, So
I mean, they had like a command module type thing that they're using.
Yeah, it was in the nose cone.
Right. So it's like your old school rockets. They're definitely going to get to a point where they'll create.
Edmundo is trying to get into the next flight into space.
Yeah, this is what I like. I think I started watching a bunch of like Elon gets mad during an interview, or Elon owns reporter or something, because he's I don't try to like look at him like he's just this absolute complete genius. I think it's a balance of the dude's smart, but also he has a sense of instinct for what he's doing, like a sense of ambition.
Sure.
Like there are people that are in the purely smart in the smarts department, the intelligence side, are smarter than him. But I think he combines the being, because he has some skills. I think I watched a documentary about him just the other day, actually, going over his like how he became successful. So everyone knows about him because of PayPal.
Yes.
But did you know about the project he had before that?
No.
He created a when he was 28, he sold. Oh, I'd have to look it up quick. But basically,
you've gone very dark, very, very dark. Okay.
Sorry, let me one sec here. 1 sec. There we go. That should help.
Yeah, he's just paused the camera, guys. It's not a loss of signal.
No, yeah, we're good. We're good. So if I look here, he is engineer. So early life. Here we go. So yeah, they talked about how he was really good at computer programming. Here we go. So if you look, I'll actually just do a screen share since we're on this topic. So for our listeners, I'm sharing the screen. I'm looking at the Wikipedia article for Elon Musk, and it shows. Here we go. There. So
he's part of Zip2. Okay.
Zip2. Yep. So Zip2. Him and his brother, when he was like 28, created the company. Started Zip2, and basically it was a marketed as an internet city guide and newspaper publishing with maps. It was like an early rendition of like what would be like Yellow Pages and almost even
like a Google Maps before it.
Well, and MapQuest even.
Yeah.
So then he sold that and received $22 million.
Yeah.
That was his first one. Then he took that. So he was 28 when this happened, and he said, he could have just retired at that point.
Yeah.
But here he comes. So then then he founded X.com, which was a online payment service, and then he used $10 million of his money, and then of course created PayPal.
Yes.
And then sold that and received $165 million.
Yes, when he sold it.
So then, it's like, everyone knows about X.com and PayPal, but they don't know about Zip2. And then came SpaceX, actually, before he got before Tesla.
Yeah, he didn't start Tesla. He kicked out the original founder of Tesla.
Right, and but yeah, it's then he took over. Yeah, well, not took over. Sorry, bought space. Not.
Well, he started.
Created.
He
created
SpaceX.
So yeah, no, it's cool to kind of see his background. I know we've kind of talked about there's definitely things that he's done that, like in terms of accomplishments and stuff. I know you've kind of said like a lot of his financial success is with government contractors nowadays. Like he's able to kind of get that. But you got to admit, the guy being able to come up with rockets that are cheaper than what NASA makes is still a pretty big deal.
I mean, to be fair, I will never knock the man's engineering prowess, but he did not come up with the Falcon 9 rockets on his own.
Right? Of course not. Right. Steve Jobs didn't invent the iMac all by himself either.
That's kind of the point. So yes, he's a visionary and he knows how to pull together good people. So I'm not gonna dismount any of that. But at the same time, the private market, anybody in the private market, including Blue Horizon, which is Bezos' company, also does things a hell of a lot cheaper than NASA. It doesn't take much to do more efficient than a government program. So I'm not giving him major props in that respect.
I mean, if the private sector can save the government money so that the government can take that money to do something like to take the real big risks, so to speak. So like the big thing is going to Mars.
Right.
And NASA was always kind of at the front of that, like, we're going to go to Mars, we're going to go to Mars, we're going to go to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
But Elon might get there first.
No, well, this is why I, okay, fine. Yes, he's inventive and stuff like that, but he's not very original. When the space program was canceled under, was it the Obama administration or Bush?
Yeah, the shuttle program.
The shuttle was canceled under Obama. Bush wanted to go to Mars. Anyway, and of course it's going to cost trillions of dollars and whatever. Anyway, when they canceled the shuttle program, that's when SpaceX became the viable alternative. And it's exactly what you're saying. The government basically scaled back the budget on NASA to the point where they are just the facilitators of the launch platform. Really, they rent out the Kennedy Space Center launch pad to private companies, and that's what opened up the private commercial space industry, basically. So you had SpaceX, you got Blue Horizon. I think there's one other one, I can't remember what it's called, not doing as successfully. But all of this is what's interesting, is all of the things that they're doing now, NASA already did. Like the reusable rockets, yeah, NASA built that back in the 70s, right? But it wasn't cost effective because it's a government program. You don't have to be cost effective. There is a redesign for a shuttle. They're probably not going to build it. But the Americans purposely built the shuttle exceedingly expensive and inefficient because they were worried about the Russians stealing the plans. And they figured if the Russians stole the plans, they could never afford to build it because it was so ridiculously, it's so expensive. And the Russians had to redesign it. So if you know the long history of the space race and the space industry in the US and between Russia and stuff like that, nothing that he's doing is unique. It's just that because it's the private sector, they now have the profit motive and they're trying to be more and more efficient, which is fine, which is great. I give him props for that. But it wouldn't exist if he didn't have massive subsidies coming in the form of government grants. So NASA is out of the launch business, but they still have to put up military satellites. They still have to put up, cargo. They still have to shuttle people back and forth from the International Space Station, and they contract out to private companies to do it. That's where he makes most of his money. SpaceX makes money by these government contracts. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, man, it's free money from the government. Fuck it. I'll jump on a piece of that.
Yeah.
So again, there's nothing that's particularly outstanding. He's a brilliant programmer, but he's pulling from technology that's already existed. He hasn't really pioneered anything. And the few things he has suggested to pioneer, like the Hyperloop, which he pitched back in 2012, which still doesn't exist, and the technology still doesn't work. Everybody's kind of praising him for these things, and it's kind of like, are you serious? Like this is ridiculous, Or his boring company where he's going to have tunnels that run underneath, Los Angeles. It's called a subway. We've had them for over 100 years, and in fact, his version is worse because you want to put cars under there when that's like the least efficient form of transporting people underground. So a lot. Give Jackie Jacket. He definitely has a lot of praiseworthiness. But a lot of it is a lot of hype, and you have
I think Bill Burr, the comedian, was making the comment about Steve Jobs.
Well, what was his comment?
So people were kind of like, he goes, they asked him about Steve Jobs, and he goes, I don't get the hype. He goes, he goes, I mean, what did he really do? He goes to Apple and he goes, I want to put all my songs in this.
Yeah.
Get on it. Walks out. Then he gets the device. He goes out to the the demos and kind of, I made this. Kind of like that. And then you have the whole thing of, what is it they called it, the reality distortion field.
Right.
And around Steve Jobs and all this
Steve
stuff.
Jobs and Elon and yeah.
And it's just like I mean, it is and it isn't. So it's like I think they come up with the idea that no one comes up with, but they have people that make that definitely they hire and like make the idea reality, and then they get the credit for the idea.
Sure.
Whereas there was a time when, and that's just how things are kind of nowadays. Whereas there was a time when, if you had an idea, you had to make it happen.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. And this is why I don't have that much respect for Elon, because he hasn't come up with original ideas. Apart from his software successes in the early days, and even those are rehashing of things that already existed. And PayPal is by far the most brilliant thing, revolutionary in terms of the internet banking system that existed. Full props for that. But nothing else he's ever come up with has really been original. Nothing else he's really come up with has worked. I mean, we still have the whole thing with Solar City, where he bought that off his brother, I think it's his brother, for $4 billion. And he did the solar roof, and everybody's going to have solar power on the roof. That's gone quiet. That doesn't exist. They took all these pre-orders. that company's basically disappeared.
But flamethrowers are Brook.
Right, the flamethrower company, right? That was supposed to be a thing. I think people pre-ordered that as well. I don't know.
No, they got those. Those are out there though.
I think there are a couple of them, but yeah.
There's a handful. They're out there, but not many people are posting about them. I think it was because some legality to it.
Sure,
maybe, it's kind of an odd weapon. Like, I mean,
yeah, so
I know what's his
Second Amendment loophole or something.
Yeah, like I know Rogan has one, and it definitely works. Yeah. What was it? What was it? Like he said he has all his guests hold one,
and he do a picture.
Yeah. But Elon was the only one that actually shot it in the studio.
Pull the trigger. Yeah.
Yeah, Conky gets it, not a flamethrower.
Not yeah, exactly. So I mean that's kind of my I mean I'm not gonna knock the guy. He's brilliant in his business savvy and all this other kind of stuff. I didn't appreciate what he did with Tesla. Especially, he kicked out the founder. He basically took it over. Now everybody thinks it's his company. There are a lot of problems at Tesla. He's been caught lying to the investors. They're in tremendous financial trouble. There's just a lot that's going on there that isn't great.
Would you buy a Tesla?
Would I buy a Tesla?
If you
Probably
could.
Not. Not when Tesla first came out with the Roadster, I was the biggest touter of the Tesla Roadster when it was still under Martin Eberhard and the other founder. And I tried to import one to Trinidad and Tobago, but I couldn't get the insurance because the insurance companies are stuck in the dark ages. They did not know how to evaluate the engine because that's what the fees were based on. So yeah, I was a huge, everybody else was back then, it was hybrid cars and gas electric, and I was like full electric, let's do it. So I was a big cheerleader for Tesla when it first came out.
Solar roads.
I wasn't as big on the solar roads.
The solar freaking roadways.
Yeah, and that's completely collapsed. It's, again,
yeah, because they found out like they were cracking the panels when they would drive on them.
I mean, the whole point you put solar panels on the roof is so it's unobstructed, right? I mean, the point of putting it on the ground that's kind of retarded. It's like you have to be like mentally retarded to think this is a good idea.
Well, what about here's another one. Wireless charging roads.
I mean that exists. Well, it's not wireless, but they could probably do wireless. Roads. Yeah, induction roads could work now. I don't know if electric cars are necessarily the best way to go. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I mean, I'm just thinking of more on like the power and instant acceleration aspect is kind of cool.
Oh no, it's great. It's great technology. I would not buy a Tesla. I might if there's another company that was doing it. Like I was considering a Jaguar I-Pace. Which is kind of an SUV, came out a couple of years ago. I think they just did a recall on them actually, but they're sexy, sexy cars. I would much rather buy an electric car from one of the established car makers than Tesla. Because I'm pretty sure the established car maker is going to be around a lot longer than Tesla.
Yeah, I honestly, if I could get a Tesla, I'd get it purely for like it wouldn't be some virtueless signal like, oh, no fossil fuels. I honestly would want it just because I think it's cool.
Yeah. I'm not a greenie. I'm not a tree hugger. I don't really give a shit about the environment.
It's more of like having the coolest piece of technology rather than being to like have like some statement. Like,
correct.
I mean, obviously cell phones aren't gas powered, but
well, when you plug them in, they might be.
Yeah, the battery takes off, but I mean, it's just the technology aspect. So I've seen Teslas and stuff. I see like the stuff they got going for it. I've even thought time to time just to rent one for a day.
Yeah, no, they're very cool.
Have you driven one before?
No, but I've been in one. I haven't driven it. We did have a guy in Trinidad, and he gave me like a quick spin around the block, nothing far, and very cool. And the acceleration is insane because you have 100% torque from the go. Like as you hit the accelerator, you got 100% torque all the way. And I personally think that Formula One and possibly but all kind of auto sports and stuff like that are probably going to go with individual drive electric car motors. Like every wheel will have its own motor, and they're gonna like just completely max it out.
Have you heard about so what's really cool about that is because they do that Yeah, spec brings up a good point. Burning coal and fossil fuels to run your electric car because you're eco-friendly and concerned about the environment.
Well, I
No,
don't
that's
give a shit
true.
about
That's
the
true.
environment. I'm like, fuck it, yeah.
No, yeah, that's why I'm like,
but,
it's purely a tech thing, not really an
I
environment
get
thing.
you.
I mean, now if in the future we start moving to more nuclear sources of power, and then we can get our power that way, hey,
Yeah.
then it'd be truly green.
Yeah.
At
Glow in
least a
the
lot
dark
more.
green too. Yeah.
It is dark green. Yeah. But no, I remember they said there's something about the onboard computer
Mm,
and how it manages the wheels and the suspension and the turning
yeah.
that in an event of like hydroplaning or drifting,
Yeah. In
it,
terms of moving it from which eye has grip versus which one isn't.
it's actually a lot quicker than your regular, like, because with your gas powered cars, like they will have like computers built in, but
Mhm.
there's still that delay
Yeah, of
of
course,
trying to
because it's
get the
still a
power to the wheels
mechanical.
to adjust. So
Yeah,
when it's electric, it would be able to do that a lot quicker. That you
yeah.
can like you would have a car that just, if with the right controls in place, you would never be able to spin out.
It's not quite as easy as that, but
Not like never, but like the spin
yeah,
out would be a lot more controlled. Or if you wanted, you could spin in place.
yeah. I mean, the cars that do that now, even the gas cars, they can do that now. So it's not groundbreaking technology. It's just cool that it could do it faster, kind of fly by wire style. And yeah, I completely agree in that respect. The technology is cool, but at the same time, the other reason I wouldn't buy a Tesla is because it's old right now. The styling is almost 8 years old. They
There's the
haven't
new ones.
upgraded. Yeah, so that's what they do. They don't upgrade, like every year a new version of the Toyota Corolla will come out and they make a couple changes, tweak the lights or whatever. That's not the case with Tesla. You're driving a car. The only one they've revamped is the Roadster, and that was just a demonstration. That car doesn't exist. You can
But the
there's no.
Cybertruck.
Then you got the Cybertruck, something out of Blade Runner that looks like ugly as sin. I'm not going
I mean,
along
they're
with
saying the metal.
Cybertruck.
They're saying the metal is bulletproof.
Yeah, well, they also said the glass was pretty much unbreakable until they broke it in the
Well, then
demonstration.
they did. Yeah, I remember they showed that. They said that the demonstration model that they did apparently had been hit so much that's why it broke, because they showed them
Yeah,
doing it on a new model and the
yeah.
glass was fine. So it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, demonstrations are a funny thing. When Bill Gates came out to do a Windows, I can't remember what version of Windows he was. It crashed on live TV. There's a big blue screen that went up like in the middle of the demonstration.
Jobs almost had one of those too.
Yeah, it happens. I just don't like the look of the Cybertruck. I think it just looks stupid.
Yeah,
I'm old fashioned. I thought cars of the future would be sleek and sexy and that kind of stuff.
not polygons.
Not fucking PS1 graphics sort of thing.
With
just my
your
personal.
You get
that's
your
my personal take.
accompanying PS1 Laura Croft with the pointy boobs.
With the pointy boobs, yeah. That's kind of what I think. And I understand why he's done. I mean, he's giving all these excuses about, the stainless steel body and all this stuff. No, it's fucking cheap to make. If you have to bend and curve and all this other kind of stuff, it takes longer to design the car. So every auto engineer is looking at this is like he's trying to save cost and he's trying to build it quick. That's all he's doing. And he's trying to play it off like, yeah, this is the future.
Yeah, there's that. I know people were saying also the way the electric cars are built, it's pretty much just the chassis and the battery, and they throw the body on top. So there's no huge difference between the cars. Like the Cybertruck is basically same chassis. Maybe, I mean, they maybe reinforce certain things, but they're reusing a lot of like the same Tesla components.
It's a Model S, and they just put a different body on it and reinforced a couple of things, probably. Yeah,
bigger
but,
wheels.
That's not uncommon either, because Audi, VW, Seat, and there's another one, Audi. Anyway, those three car companies all use the similar chassis for different models and stuff like that.
So it's and they really, electric cars don't need that much difference to them. It's just
No.
electric motor. It's not like with your your trucks. Like let's say your pickup trucks, you need a different beefier engine, the power distribution and all this has to be different, and that's how they are able to tow.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's just straight power to wheels. I think there's only like in
Well, they
Teslas,
have a
there's only.
gearbox. Yeah, it's not direct power to wheels yet, but that's coming.
I thought there was no transmission in those.
No, there's a drivetrain. Yeah, there's definitely something that throttles. Otherwise, you couldn't go in reverse. So there is a like a transmission system.
It's not just well, no, I mean, but it's not just like a flip of a switch of current, like current going forwards and backwards.
No, it's done. I think it's done mechanically. It's still done mechanically until
Yeah,
they
they
do
said
the ones.
there's
that
only
every
one
wheel.
moving part in a Tesla. They said.
Right. Again, I don't know. I have to see. There's a guy called Rich Rebuilds, and I think he talked about because he bought a very old, not an old one, but one that flooded, a Tesla Model S, and he's not an engineer, and he basically did a video series on how he rebuilt it and made it functional. Very, very interesting. He's a very funny guy too. He's a black guy, and he's it's crazy. And he goes into the whole thing. Like you could see how he rebuilds the engine, how he rebuilds the power pack and the shit he gets from Tesla and, all the stuff in between and whatever. So I'll have to double check it. I'm not sure. I think he did say there was a drivetrain, but it might depend on the model. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, here we are at time, actually. That's surprising.
Oh, dang, man. Just when it was getting good.
Yeah.
What a way to end on a positive note. We're going to the moon. Elon is stealing your tax money to do it. And Minneapolis is burning to shit. I mean, it's a trifecta. I think that's a good show.
It's a good episode to end the month of May on.
It's the end of May. Oh my God. Wait. We've had Corona, murder hornets, riots.
World War III.
World War III. Right. So what is your prediction for the end of the world apocalyptic event for June?
Wasn't there some guy that discovered a whole bunch of sarcophagi?
And somebody's like, no, put them back. This is not the year.
I remember I did see that. Like some archaeologist discovered a whole bunch of sarcophagi.
Unopened sarcophagi. No, put that shit back. There was another one as well. Like a scientist discovers some cave where all of these animals have been locked away for the last 5 million years, and people are like, fuck that shit, put that back. This is not the time.
Freaking COVID 100 or some shit. Like,
yeah. We do not need to be opening this shit right now. So yes, yeah. What do you predict for June? What's going to be the hot topic for June?
Oh, God damn it.
Spec has his money on a race war, so we'll consider that option B.
I'm not really. I mean, that's kind of an extension of what's going on right now.
Yeah, you think it's going to escalate?
Yeah, that's kind of. I think I told you one of two things will happen: either the movement burns out at some point, which means more destruction on the way before it does that,
sure.
Or the military steps in and basically uses that as an excuse to institute a type of martial law or just strict security proceedings to maintain order, which then will further restrict movement freedoms and such more than COVID could do.
Yeah.
So is that, and then okay. So what's gonna happen?
Aliens. I got my money on aliens. I think aliens are going to show up. And
we already found out aliens were real. You didn't know that?
Right. It was declassified.
The Pentagon declassified like real UFO footage.
Yeah.
And
they didn't say it was aliens. They just said we couldn't identify. This is like
but it's funny. Like
we don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Pentagon said we found something flying around in space we didn't know about, and actually, what was funny is no one cared.
Yeah. So who is it that did that skit? And I heard them say that like aliens were reported as real and nobody gave a shit. I can't remember. Rogan or one of them. Yeah, what is it gonna be, man? Mummies? I think maybe mummies. That would be pretty cool.
No,
ninjas? Maybe an army invasion of ninjas.
Let's go with animals.
You think animals are gonna rebel? Are they gonna like gain consciousness and like come after us?
You might get. I think what's
they're gonna usurp us on the pyramid of hierarchy of food?
Something maybe. I don't know. I think there might be something with animals. Maybe. Maybe what'll happen is you'll get a lot of hippie types that might go to all these like exotic animal zoos and let them all loose.
Okay. So eco terrorist hippies is the event for June. All right, I'll take it.
Yeah. Carol Baskin.
Carol fucking Baskin.
She'll be somehow involved.
We still haven't done the review of the Tiger King, by the way. We might have to do that as a special.
Yeah, we're a little late on it, but this should be good. So of course, everyone, of course, check out Tactical Soap for 10K rum as the coupon code for 10% off. Check out Subscribe Star if you guys want to support the show. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to us on iTunes and all other podcasting platforms that you find us. What do we got going on this month? I know next week we've got Ryan Stone on Religion Zero.
Which
not
is on
sure.
Corey's channel. I think.
Corey's channel, Conk.
Yeah, Conk.
Yep. So
same Conk in the chat, guys. Go to his channel, subscribe, and you can watch us on Religion Zero if you're so inclined.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. We will, of course, see everyone next week.
Thanks for watching, everyone.